What's up, you guys? I'm in Needles, California. Um, Down about 38 minutes left on my 70-hour clock. I figured and let you guys know what's happening and how everything went with that swap last night. Um, uh, anyway, yeah, this was definitely a not so experienced driver I did the swap with, and a driver with not so good habits either. Well, he has a trainee in a truck with him. We don't really have a training program, but we do have people who do act as trainers, but um, it's more so like you get people fresh out of CDL school with the intent of having them team drive with you as well. So it's like the trainer is only training long enough to get the person up to speed to drive. We don't have an actual training program where people that were that's just their entire job is training new drivers. All right, so anyway, had let's see, other drivers showed up finally around 9 something at night. It sounded like he was a little annoyed that it took so long because maybe his trainee had not, I guess, kind of lollygagged or something. I don't know what was the story there. It didn't really sound like he's the most impressed with her habits, like being on the phone too much. Doesn't sound like she's the most interested in learning things, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I was having a conversation with him, and turned out he spent about a year with Sierra England right after he got a CDL, and then right after I finished his 1 year, he came straight to JCT. I can't remember how many months. I think he said he's been with us maybe 6 months or something like that. Not very long. Might have been a little bit less than that, but I want to say 6 months. But CTI leading. Anyway, yeah, I got to talking to him. I was asking him, well, how you liking it here and all that. And it sounded like he had some reservations about being here because it's. And I've got kind of the impression I didn't really feel like he was making enough money. And I know what it's like being a trainer at Sierra England. Even when you're an inexperienced trainer, I'm not gonna lie, the pay is actually better as a trainer, on a team truck there, running at team speeds at Sierra England than what you're gonna get here. But you can make decent money here. And even better, you don't have to deal with the stress of dealing with somebody who you don't know that you can really sleep, dealing with, or if they're actually even going to work out. Most of our drivers are solo trucks. We have 800 trucks, or roughly 800 that I know, and a little bit less than 100 of them are team trucks. So, a 7-to-1 or so ratio of solo trucks to team trucks here. At least as far as I know. I can't speak for the company. I just talk about what I do know of, what I hear. All right. Anyway, talked about, wanted to get kind of an idea of where the issue was with not making money, and it kind of sounded like maybe the fuel. I got the impression that maybe the fuel management issue was the contributor. Sounded like because I asked him, well, what do you usually do about fueling? And he says, I always go to Pilot Flying J. Like, well, there's your problem right there. You want to make extra money, you go somewhere else. Case in point, if I did 100 gallons of fuel at the Flying J in Winslow, Arizona, that's $2.55 a gallon right now. With the fuel rebate, it's $2.40. Okay. That's at 100 gallons, that is $240 there in Winslow. That Jesse and Diane Wyatt like to go to, and I go to as well, $2.19 a gallon. So 100 gallons, you're paying $219. So even with the fuel, with the rebate at Pilot Flying J, and you got you're paying $219 versus $240. That's a $21 savings for just one single fuel purchase. You get a good, let's see, yeah, more. You're gonna normally make about 400, burn, I guess, gallons of fuel per settlement period. Let's say you run about 3,000 miles. You should be using about 425 to 430 gallons of fuel, ballpark. So if you're saving $20 on 100 gallons, and then let's just say you save $20 every time, that's $80 saving right there. That can make a difference in your pay to some extent. And the savings can actually get even bigger if you're in certain areas, and you can get sometimes larger differences in what you're actually spending on fuel where you're at versus where you could be spending on fuel somewhere else. So it's an important thing here. If you want to succeed, say you're going to make a lot of money, but you can make decent money here but you have to not do so well here. All right. Anyway, we ended up doing the swap. And I noticed one thing right off the bat. Now, mind you, he had already told me that they always stop at he always stops for fuel at Pilot Flying J. He doesn't really stop anywhere else. And all right, so when I go to do my walk around after we got through actually hooking up to each other's trailers, start walking around, and I see that the trailer that he gave me has only barely a quarter tank of. Normally, I don't really care. I don't make a big deal out of what kind of fuel people leave me a trailer with. At least leave around half a tank or something. When it's all about barely at a quarter of a tank, and I'm in the middle of a 10-hour break, and you're giving me a load that's running in continuous mode, it's going to burn through that fuel while I'm on my break. Or it's going to burn through some of that fuel. It's not going to run out, but there's a possibility it could trip the low fuel warning light alarm, which once that happens, there's you'll get an alarm code for check fuel sensor circuit, and you can't get rid of it until actually a mechanic actually clears it or fixes it, whatever. So a little annoyed with that, not to mention the fact that I don't get my fuel at Pilot Flying J normally unless I can get it for a good price. And a good price means it has to be, without a doubt, below the national average price. Right now, the national average is $2.42 a gallon. Unless they're selling for less than $2.42 a gallon even before the rebate, I'm not interested. I'm going somewhere else for my fuel. So what happens later on, I ended up coming down back into Arizona, and I stopped at Holbrook, the Maverick and Holbrook for tractor fuel, and then with the fuel planning, I maxed out my tanks in Holbrook. I didn't buy just enough to deal with the particular load I was on, as a lot of people do. I bought more. It's going to cost me a little bit more, but then again, the load that I'm buying it on is not, it may not, it might be the only trip with the settlement period because I'm taking home time, but otherwise, I'd have other loads that I'd be getting paid for and burning that fuel with. But anyway, I buy the fuel knowing that it's going to cost me more on my next settlement, but I also buy it knowing that I don't, if I buy it there for $2.18 a gallon, then I can get into California, do what I got to do there, eventually pick up my next load, and then come back out of California and not have to buy even one single gallon of that $3+ per gallon fuel that California loves. So, and yeah, Californians do love it because my fellow citizens there stupidly voted for a fuel tax increase that contributed, that helped, that added to that problem. I wasn't one of them who voted for it, but there are enough. It was actually a referendum in our election last time, and stupidly, people actually voted in favor of it. And I'm not going to get into politics, but it's the pure simple fact that California fuel is over $3 a gallon. I don't know exactly how much, but it's over $3. We'll just say a good dollar per gallon, almost more, between stopping in Holbrook or Winslow at the Maverick versus getting fuel in California. So even if I buy like 50 gallons worth of fuel, if I have to buy 50 gallons of it in California to get me back to Winslow or Holbrook on the next load, I'm going to cost myself $50 more long term than if I just, all right, go ahead and buy $219 worth of fuel when I could have bought, 50 times 219, a little over 100, well, 108, I guess. Yeah, because if 100 gallons is $219, then 100 gallons or 50 gallons would be half that. So, yeah, about 110 or so dollars, 190. Yeah, let's say about 109, 110, somewhere around there. What it would have cost me to buy the fuel in California, or made no, it's and fuel that I don't need to get to California with, but in return, I'm saving myself from having to spend $150 plus, probably even $175 in California just to get back over here. So I want to spend $110 now, or do I want to pay $175 later? It's a $65 difference in how much I have to spend on fuel then. I'm going to go with, let's buy the extra fuel now when I get it for a better price and not have to buy the more costly fuel later on. Why would I cost myself $65 long term? That's why I say don't, if you're going to be in a lease contract or owner operator, whatever, and you want to learn how to manage fuel, and that's $65, you're basically, it's coming out of your paycheck. I mean, yeah, I'm going to end up with a smaller paycheck this week because of it, but I'm going to end up with a bigger, and then some paycheck the following week because I'm going to have fuel already in the truck that I don't need to buy now. I won't have to buy as much fuel on the next trip. So I just look at long term personally. I don't care how much I actually need to finish a particular load or what the fuel, what the settlement period is. Just get the fuel for a good price, and then try to make sure I get enough to get me to another spot where that's a good price. So that's an important part of being successful, I guess, with your fuel management ability when you're either an owner operator or in a lease contract. You'd be surprised how many people there are here who think they're doing everything just right, and then to find out, no, they're actually doing just about everything possible wrong, even though they think they're doing everything correct, or as best as they can. No, doing a whole bunch wrong. So if you can't make money here, be open-minded and ask people for help. We have a group. I mean, I'm saying this mainly for people who also drive for JCT, but anybody who's in any kind of a lease program or is an owner operator, whatever, and you need any kind of help, this kind of stuff can help you out. Ask me for help. Ask somebody else for help. We can always give tips. You never know. Never come into this with the attitude that you know everything you need to know. You might know everything you need to know, but you never know when somebody else out there has a little bit of information that you don't have that can actually make a meaningful difference to you. Uh, Case in point, when I was in aircraft maintenance, I was like the go-to guy. I was like the main uh, the most technically knowledgeable guy in the shop, because all the years and experience I had with both in the shop and with the airplanes and learning the systems. And and end up with a lot of other people there who hadn't been in the shop as long. They know they're familiar with the aircraft itself in general, but they don't know they're not specialists in the flight control or landing gear systems like I was. So they didn't have the expertise in those areas. Yeah, so they could have been like, you come in, and then you go to the shop that I was in, and where we specialize specifically in flight controls and landing gear and actuated doors, and we know a hell of a lot more about those particular systems than everybody else. Just like an electrician is going to know a lot more about the electrical systems than a crew chief will. Crew chief knows stuff about those systems, it just doesn't know every intimate detail of them. So that's kind of where I was at before I retired, and I look at it the same way. There were a couple of times where, all right, I was the go-to guy, and I was the kind of know-it-all of the systems, but there were still a couple of occasions where somebody who was a lot newer to the shop would actually would either use some method or whatever that, like, it's interesting, I just learned something new. I'm whether it be working on the computer, or I'm technically expert on also, versus somebody who's not so technically expert on it, or not so computer savvy, but they might still do something that they're willing to learn. And if you're not willing to learn, then you're the idiot. You're the ignorant idiot. Yeah, and then you wonder why there are people like me who are know-it-alls, and sometimes the know-it-all part of me isn't so much because I do know it all. Sometimes it's because I'm challenging you to teach me something. Teach me why what I do know is not sufficient. Because I'm always an avid learner. Doesn't matter what the situation is, what we're being talked about. Even if I'm an expert on something, there's always something new I can learn. And if someone has a certain way that they see things, I want to understand your logic. And it's kind of like a peer review in the world of medicine. Someone does like some clinical trial on a drug or whatever, like say a COVID-19 drug, and needs to get peer reviewed by other experts. What happens when they do that? Well, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? They're really questioning your integrity. But at the same time, it makes you better at the same time. And and then also, they might have different opinions, or you might be able to figure something out and answer their questions that are really tough questions to ask to answer sometimes. This is the way it is. So there are times I do come across as a know-it-all. I know that, but I say I'm also always eager to learn something new, and I would challenge anybody to teach me whatever they can that is actually worth learning. Yeah, because if it's something that's highly questionable, then I'm like, I don't care how much experience you have or how much knowledge you have. If it sounds like bullshit, it smells like bullshit, I'm going to treat it like it's bullshit. It's just, hey, common sense, and and I think everybody should strive to be that way and make the maximum use of their brain. All right, so anyway, going back to this swap. Alright, so I was a little annoyed with the fact that they gave me a trailer with only a quarter tank of reefer fuel left in it. That forced me in a position where now I had to make an extra stop along the way in Arizona just for reefer fuel, because I don't get my tractor fuel at the places I have to get my reefer fuel from. I have to go to Pilot Flying J for reefer fuel, and yeah, as it was, like I stopped in Holbrook for fuel at the 286 mile marker. 30 miles later, I had to make another fuel stop just to get reefer fuel only. That's not right. So if you get in this industry, if you get a CDL, or even if you already have a CDL and yeah, maybe you're not, you don't have experience with the reefer industry, these are some of the courtesies, customs and courtesies of doing swaps or repowers, whatever, when you own reefer trailers. Anytime you're going to give up a trailer, whether it's to a drop yard or to a repower, swap, whatever, always do your best to give the other person a full trailer full of fuel, a full tank of fuel, whatever. I'm not going to make a stink out of it if it's half a tank usually, but if you're going to drop it in a drop yard, especially if it's an empty that you know somebody's going to be using to pick up another load with, there are a lot of shippers, particularly drop hook shippers, they won't even let you on the property unless the tank has at least 3/4 fuel, and there are even some that won't let you in unless it's completely full. Live load places usually are not so strict about it, but you know, once in a while you'll get a live load location that is they'll actually want your trailer to have at least so much amount of fuel in it, like at least half a tank or at least 3/4. There are not a lot of them out there, but they do happen, and you don't want to show up at one of these shippers and get told you need to go off the property and go put some fuel in that tank before we'll take you. Because then you do that, and then you show up again, and when you do show up, it's after your appointment time. Guess what? You showed up late now, because the time you showed up earlier doesn't count. When you show up actually ready to load by their standards, that's when you're there. And if you show up late and it's because you had to go off their property earlier to go get reefer fuel, that's a service failure on your part. Okay, when you go to drop a trailer, say an empty in a drop yard, again, you leave drop it with a full tank of fuel, or at least 3/4, if nothing else, because you never know what kind of shipper the next person who's going to use that trailer is going to, or where it's at. They could be taking it to a location that is not along a practical route to where they can get reefer fuel, between where they acquire the trailer from and where they're picking up their load from. Like with us, San Bernardino, it's not too bad because we got a number of places that are not even Pilot Flying J locations where they actually have it set up where we can go ahead and get reefer fuel from. Examples are like Royal Truck Stop in Colton, or San Bernardino, whatever you want to call it, right there off Waterman Avenue, or just southeast of where I-215 and I-10 meet up. Technically, it's at the corner of Redlands Boulevard and Hunts Lane, I think. That's one place we can get reefer fuel from. We also can go to I-10 truck stop right by the corner of Valley and Riverside Avenue, and kind of right there in the Colton, Rialto area. We also get trailer washouts there by contract. The 7-Eleven / Rialto Travel Center right there by the Walmart Distribution Center in Colton, we can also do reefer fuel at. A couple other places in the area too. Oh yeah, and then the Pilot, and they got the Flying J over there off of over in Fontana now. That's a new location, but so there are options there, at least with us. But there have been times where I say when I was with Sear England or something, and maybe I had to go and take an empty from the Colton yard up to maybe Central Cal or something. Okay, the way I usually usually do go up that way, not went, would usually be maybe take Highway 138 up, go up 15 through the home pass and take one on how I'm feeling or the traffic conditions. And sometimes there, especially if I was going like Bakersfield, there wasn't a fuel stop conveniently located along that route. I would have to go out of route, even just a small amount, like at least a good 10-15 miles, just to get reefer fuel. Shouldn't have to do that. Yeah, there are always these little situations like that, and so you never know what the next person to use that trailer after you is going to have to deal with. Don't put them in that position where you make them show up late to a customer because they have to go out of their way to get reefer fuel. Set it up so it's ready for them right away, so they can just run straight to the customer and pick up the load without any kind of out of route bullshit. Now, yesterday, the trailer that I took over to Gallup to do the swap, there was about half full on fuel originally. I had stopped in Winslow at the Maverick for tractor fuel because I was down about a quarter of a tank, and I didn't think I would have been able to make it. I knew I wouldn't make it from there to Gallup and back. So I went ahead and bought about 50 gallons of fuel there, enough to be sure I could get to Gallup, have to get fuel again. And let's see now, and I had a 70-hour clock issue, a concern. Because when I first left Victorville yesterday, I was not sure that I'd have enough time to work with to make it to Gallup before my clock ran out. But then once I stopped in Winslow for my fuel, I realized, I'm actually doing fine on my time here, where I shouldn't have any problems getting there. So I went ahead and, as a courtesy, went to Jay's at. I made a special stop there just for reefer fuel, even though I still had about a half know what kind of person you're going to get or what they're dealing with or how they do things. And and I have the time to work with. I knew I was going to be there before them. I knew I was going to have to wait for them. So why not? I'm going to go ahead and knock this thing out and hook them up. So now there's a difference between what you do and what you expect, or there should be a difference. Just because you do things a certain way doesn't mean that you have a right to expect other people to do the same thing the same way. But given a driver a truck a load that is running in continuous mode, and I got 113 degree weather here. It wasn't so bad in Gallup yesterday. I think it was in the mid 80s or something like that when they showed up. I got a number from Washington, Pennsylvania calling me. I'll probably give them a call back in a little bit. It might be a couple ideas on who it might be. Anyway, they say don't want to have the fuel given an alarm code for being low on. You can see when we have an alarm going off on our trailer, and if we have that, then how does that make us look when we're sitting under a trailer that's low on fuel? Yeah, it kind of looks like it makes us look like we're not doing our job. So you don't want to be in that position. Don't give them any kind of bullshit ammo to think that you don't do your job the way you're supposed to be doing it. Okay, next I want to show you another thing here. Okay, that was Sylvia. That's what I thought. Alright, I'm going to show you. I might want to look away until it's. Maybe leave the sound on, but just don't watch, because I'm going to show you if it's still there. What was there when I acquired the trailer from him, and then I'll get some more detail on that. Okay. So come back here, do a walk around as soon as I hook up, and I'm looking at everything: tires, brakes, suspension, lights, and all that kind of crap. And what do I see? I see that. Evidently a dead rabbit. Okay. So, dead rabbit there. I thought it was kind of funny seeing that. Well, it's not really funny in a way, I guess. If you're an animal lover. I'm not a rabbit fan. In fact, I used to shoot them a lot when I was younger, especially given the fact we used to try to grow different fruits and veggies in our backyard before, and we'd never actually get them to do any to actually grow it all, because these fucking rabbits would always come out of the desert and into our backyard and eat them all before they ever got anywhere near time to ripen and get harvested. Anyway, forget about the whole thing about love or disdain for rabbits or whatever, or other animal life. It was just interesting that, hey, where'd that come from? Yeah, because I caught it very quickly, because, hey, I'm always looking. I want to see how much wear there is on the brakes. I want to make sure they're adjusted properly, everything's secure. Hey, I'm doing my job. You're supposed to do this. So then I get through walking around, and then I get my bills and walk them over to the other driver and give him my bills, and then he's giving me his bills. Now I gave him. I also gave him a copy of my skill ticket. He did not produce a skill ticket. I just talked yesterday about scaling loads and swapping. Now, this is one of those where if it was a heavier load, I would have said, where's your skill ticket? And if I was in a different position, because it was kind of a bad spot there, because I need to be home. And that's the whole reason that we were doing a swap, is so I could stay close to home. Now, I probably could have refused the swap if push came to shove, but the fact that the BOL, see, I was like two different POs. One of them's 27, almost 28,000 pounds, and the other one is just under 8,000 pounds. So about a 36,000 pound or so load. And that Tyson plant that they got it from, I think from right, is usually fairly accurate with their weights, at least in the right ballpark. In my experience, I've been to that shipper before. So I had a reason to think that, it's probably not going to have any skill problems anyway. But, 36,000 pounds, not too likely to have any axle weight issues or whatever. But it could happen. And normally I would have said either show me a skill ticket, or I'm going to go put this across the scale and make sure it's good first before you can have my bills. I went ahead and just gave the bills anyway, and looking and on the assumption that 36,000, okay, I should be all right. I didn't scale it until this morning when I started my shift, because I was in the middle of a 10-hour break when we actually did the swap. But that's something else. Just keep in mind. Do your scale your damn load. Especially if it's 35,000 pounds or heavier. Get it across the scale. Now, in fact, once when I first hooked up in the trailer. Okay. Now my truck, 70 psi, roughly 70 psi, and that suspension load gauge is usually what it takes for me to have about a 34,000 pound load on my drive axles. For most other people, everybody I know in Kenworths and Freightliners here, and my experience in the past with Freightliners, if they have a suspension load gauge, more than likely you're going to want it just a little bit above 60 psi to be at 34,000, just a hair above. My truck's a little bit different, so But either way, I got hooked up to the trailer. Suspension was inflated and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed the gauge was up above 70. I think I had the trailer brake set at first. But then once I released the trailer brakes, and I think it added, I think it inflated the airbags a little bit more, whatever, it kind of changed the balance where it got to right around 70-ish. So that kind of had me a little worried, because even though it's only a 36,000 pound load, this is telling me that it's probably a front heavy load. Because I know that I'm not going to have a gross weight issue, a concern at 36,000. I can handle almost, I can handle a good 9,000 pounds more than that gross weight. But the fact that the load gauge here was way up that high, yeah, it told me that I'm probably dealing with a nose heavy load. Yeah, so sure enough, I go across the scale this morning, and yep, it's exactly what it was. It was right about in the neighborhood of what the BOL suggested for gross weight, like 71-ish or whatever it was. But I was up over 33,000, I think like 33.8 or some crap on the drive axles. And what was it? I think like 27,000 or something like that on the tandems. So okay, no problem. At least my weights are legal. That's all I really cared about. And as long as it's not tail heavy, we're to a point where I had to slide the tandems back. And not that I would have had a concern here in California anyway, because there aren't any weigh stations that I have to go through in Cali with this load. But if it was going to like Central Cal, where I would have to go through Tehachapi or Chowchilla, no, we would have had a problem if it was a tail heavy load, and I would have had to slide the tandems back. So, but thankfully all was well, and all is well that ends well. But just a good reminder: scale your damn loads and make sure they're done correctly. So the fact that this guy, whether it's him or his trainee or whatever, and I don't know all the day. I don't know enough about our training program here. It sounded like there's like a 3-phase thing that goes on here where, when they first out of CDL school, I think they have to spend like 4 weeks where it's just a totally solo environment where only the trainee can drive, the trainer cannot. And the trainer is supposed to log on duty time while they're in the front seat, and they're supposed to be up there the entire time that the trainee is driving. And then after 4 weeks, I think it's another 4 weeks, I think he said, where the trainee drives half the time, the trainer drives half the time, or something like that. Kind of like it's solo speed still, but but it's more like the trainer spends half his shift in the passenger seat, and then the other half of the shift in the driver's seat. And then both drivers do a 10-hour break and together and repeat process for 4 weeks. And then after that 4-week process is done, then they go into a more team-oriented environment where they run actual team speed. I wasn't quite sure what part of that process they're in and why she was allowed to stop and get fuel and not put reefer fuel in. So didn't give me the greatest impression there. And then on top of that, when I gave them the bills, and I started joking with them. So which one of you guys killed Thumper? And I'm like, huh? Yeah, which one of you guys killed Thumper or Bugs Bunny? What do you mean? I was like, yeah, the driver's side front axle on that trailer is a dead rabbit in the axle. Right on, basically sitting right on top where the brakes are at. Really? Like, yeah. So, and I had a big grin on my face. Obviously, I was in joking mood about it. Then a few minutes later, he walks back over to my truck and the trailer he dropped are at, and I show him, and he takes a look and he sees it, and then you could tell that it had been there more than just a short time. And the fact that he didn't know anything about it, but he can tell that it's in bad enough shape that it was probably there more than a day or two, whatever. What's that tell you? It tells me that he's not doing his pre-trips. If you never noticed that, I mean, how do you not notice that when it's your job to do pre-trips and look at brakes, check them for wear and proper adjustment? You get taught that in CDL school. You can't tell me you don't get taught that, because I went through it myself. They might not do so much about checking brakes for proper adjustment. I mean, they do talk about it, but they don't really tend to give any detail about how to go about that. But you still got to check the brakes for wear, and have at least a 1/4 inch of lining left. Otherwise, it's bad. So this rabbit has been there for who knows how long, and me pointing it out to him is the first time he knows anything about it. Okay. Well, all I can say is if you're not going to be in the habit of doing pre-trips, that's on you. That's your problem. But God forbid you actually have an accident of some sort, and the cops find out that, or DOT finds out that the accident was caused by either not catching something on a pre-trip that should have been caught, or knowing there was a problem there that you just didn't give a shit about, and it became a major problem, a catastrophe. Those are two things that, even if you're logging pre-trips, can't be sure that that is going to really save your ass if you have any kind of problem, anything go wrong. And it doesn't give me the right impression of a person when I get that kind of reaction from them, and now I know, hey, this person doesn't do pre-trips, so it makes me a little more concerned. What else am I going to find wrong with the trailer that maybe they should have caught but didn't? Am I going to find things that need to be fixed now or something? So these can go. The impressions you give other drivers can go a long way. Don't give drivers a reason to not trust you. I mean, there are times we all miss stuff, but the more in the habit you are of regularly checking for problems and knowing what to look at and actually taking care of this stuff, the more you can always know you're giving somebody else a trailer that is in good shape, and you can be trusted. You can also have less people complaining about trailers that they're acquiring that were last touched by you. When when a whole bunch of people keep complaining about trailers having problems that were last touched by you, guess what? All roads lead to one place, and that's you. When it comes to dispatch and planners and management types at the yard, at the terminal, whatever, they can see this kind of stuff. Us drivers don't know these kind of things, but over there they do catch these details. And if they see that somebody in particular is always the last person to touch the trailer that has one problem or another, it's a sign, hey, this person doesn't do their pre-trips, and it just gives more ammo. Hey, if you have any kind of a slip up, bye-bye, you're out the door. We're getting rid of you because you're a liability to us anyway. All right, so anyway, I guess that'd be it for my story time today. It was another good 45-minute video again here, which is cool. I'm recording it live because I want to be able to have the camera switch back and forth with less editing hassle. I recorded it privately though, so no interaction, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I probably should have had some interaction. Just not sure how you guys are going to respond to that. With kind of thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be driving my truck. No, I'm actually done. I have 38 minutes left on my 70 now. It's barely 12:42. On another note, Jesse and Diane Wyatt are actually heading this direction. When I was on the phone with them when I got here, they were still in between Santa Rosa, New Mexico and Moriarty, New Mexico. And I'm estimating they'll probably be here in this general area around the same time that I can start rolling into my recaps. Also, this load is delivering in Colton tomorrow morning at 8:30. So I'll figure, yeah, as soon as I can, I'll roll into my recaps, get home, and then I can, stay the night at my house with the family, whatever, and then early in the morning, when it's time to go, I don't know, maybe around 6 or so in the morning tomorrow, which will still be on the latter part of my 14-hour shift. I'll run back down there. Or I'll probably leave a little bit earlier because I want to top off my reefer tank first so it's full. Then I can run down to make the delivery. And then at that point, once I'm done delivering, if my load, as long as there's no OS&Ds, then as long as I still have at least 3/4 fuel, which is what I'm expecting to be the case, then I can just shut off the reefer unit and just PC back over to our drop yard to get rid of the trailer and get back up to my house for the next few days. So that's what's going on. Normally would have been doing some local work this weekend as well, but my ex-wife and her husband are probably going to be moving to Oklahoma within the next month. And weekends we usually have our boys at my house. So I'm kind of looking. I'm anticipating an opportunity to be able to spend time with my boys this weekend, and probably one of the only chances I'll get before they probably move to Oklahoma. So no local work for me this weekend. I'll be staying home and doing quality time with family. And then hopefully Wednesday morning I'll be ready to roll again. I got to turn my truck in on Monday morning for maintenance. Get that oil pan leak fixed that I know for sure they caused, and then also see if they had anything to do with the windshield washer reservoir leak. If they had nothing to do with that, then I'll just buy a new reservoir and change it myself. But if they did possibly have something to do with it, then I can maybe get a warranty replacement on it. So anyway, that's what's going on. It's going to be kind of a slow week here on the channel, I think, for the next week until I get rolling again. All right, guys? Thanks for hanging out and watching. As always, I hope you got some good listening entertainment or whatever, learning, possibly, who knows, whatever your case might be. So, thanks a lot for your time. Have a great weekend all, and we'll see you guys later.